Sunday. 2 coaches and 2 top-seeded teams. Both have won it before, and both passionately covet this trophy. To the victors, the spoils on this day. Come on! ACC Championship of '96. No long shot for the defending champs. No slam dunk clinch for the top seed. Tim Duncan of Wake Forest, one of the nation's best big men. Stephon Marbury of Tech, one of the nation's newest sensations. Wake would love to take away the lane and give it to their dunking deacon. Georgia Tech biggest speed and cunning is their best counter. Who has the passion? The ACC Finals will tell us it's the best college basketball has to offer. The championship of the tournament, and it's next.
We are ready for the ACC Championship here at the Greensboro Coliseum. And each squad will be bidding for its 4th ACC championship. Georgia Tech has won 3 out of the 4 finals that they've been involved with. The Deacs won it back-to-back in '61 and '62. They'd love to win it back-to-back in '95 and '96. Larry Rose is the referee, working his 2nd ACC final. Dick Paparo and Frank Scagliata working with him. Rick Hartzell is the alternate. We're ready for the tip to start Championship Sunday.
Georgia Tech opens in the man-to-man.
Deacons wearing black today. Up top to Tim Duncan to open the scoring. Beautiful feed.
And you may as well establish that big guy early. Let everybody know he's there, just in case Georgia Tech needed any reminder. Deeks also in a man-to-man.
And it's Eddie Alisma trying to answer back.
What you have to do if you're Georgia Tech trying to get back in transition defense, you have to identify the shooters and go get them.
Oh, the big fella starting hot. 4-0 Wake. He has had 2 huge games in this tournament, as has this young man, Stephon Marbury, with an opening 3.
In the first 2 games of this tournament, every time Georgia Tech has needed a big basket, someone has stepped up, and Marbury putting a stop to that early Wake Forest run with a big 3.
And Harpering with the foul, working against Parole.
Harpering is a very aggressive defender. And how in the world is Harpering's hair so sweaty? We just started the game. That's an indication of how hard he works. But Harpering has to be careful. He cannot afford to have himself in foul trouble if Georgia Tech's going to be able to win this game. Aggressive defense is one thing, but you've got to also play intelligently on the defensive end. Nice defense.
Nice fake by LaRue. Marbury out to Berry. Alisma zips it to Harpering. Man, all the way to the bucket.
Duncan got it. Not going to get all the way to the bucket against Duncan very often.
Timmy with 8 blocks in the tournament coming into the game.
Nice pass.
Scored. And the foul on Maddox.
Bob, you mentioned the outstanding tournament that Tim Duncan has played thus far. He comes across and blocks the shot, pulls it down. Now he gets up the court, working very hard for position. He's all alone in there. Maddox finally comes over to help, but it's too late. Georgia Tech has to put better pressure on the ball, so it's harder to pass it inside to Duncan.
Terrific numbers against the Jackets this season, and 7 points in the first 2 minutes and 2 seconds today.
It's been too easy thus far for Wake Forest on the offensive end. Duncan can play off Alisma a bit when Alisma's on the perimeter.
Maddox. Duncan just grabbing everything in sight.
You're right, Bob. I wonder if he's going to get every rebound today. That's 3 now.
Off LaRue and out of bounds.
Now, LaRue's a quarterback. He's not a receiver.
The 2 regular season games, keep in mind, in the 60s.
Georgia Tech, of course, has played 2 games in the 80s in this tournament, so they're very comfortable with the quick pace.
They're missing the three, and
there's no, you don't even have to say it. Just when they miss, just be quiet and everybody will know that Duncan has it.
Tim had 19 rebounds against Clemson yesterday, 15 against Virginia on Friday. Squeezes this one inside to Sean Allen, working on Maddox, and Maddox blocks it. Allen gets it back, undaunted, puts it up and in.
Over the last 10 games or so of the season, Allen really began to give Wake Forest the kind of performance they needed inside to support Duncan, and it looks like he's ready to do it in this championship game.
Tech needs a big basket. They call on Marbury. Not this time, however. The big fella playing a little point guard gets it out to Rutland. Three-pointer.
Bob, that's the transition game we talked about. In transition, it's awfully hard to find those three-point shooters, and Wake Forest among the best in the country.
Number 3 nationally in three-point shooting. And Maddox shut off by Allen, and a foul on Sean Allen. 14-3, only the Marbury basket for Georgia Tech. And Dave Odom, with his big man controlling everything inside.
One thing that you wouldn't expect the Yellow Jackets to have any problem doing is scoring.
And another foul on Wake Forest. This foul on Pearl. Ricky's first. And an official's timeout. So Wake Forest gets to the first mile marker in this championship game in great shape behind Tim Duncan, leading 14-3. The culmination of this basketball celebration, the ACC championship, matching Wake against Georgia Tech and Tim Duncan. And we've only played 4 minutes, folks. 5 rebounds available on the Georgia Tech glass, and Duncan's gotten every one of them. Barry loads up. And Duncan tipped that one away, and it was last touched by Tech.
Georgia Tech shooting, Bob, now 1 for 7. Wake Forest 6 out of 7.
It brings to mind that first game in Winston-Salem. Bobby Kremen's club in the second half missed 17 straight field goals and went 12 minutes without scoring, and the Deeks were able to come back and win it behind Tony Rutland by 3. There's a travel on Pearl. Keep in mind that Georgia Tech can score quickly, and they score in spurts. In that Maryland game, the teams sort of traded spurts, and I think this is just one of the first spurts of this game. What Wake Forest needs to do is keep the pressure on by some offensive efficiency. Not going to be perfect. That was a turnover against Pearl, but Georgia Tech is a team that you would like to keep down as long as you can, not let them get off the mark. Harpering. His first 2 today. 24 against Maryland. Stop off the dribble, going straight up, shooting the ball. He's had a big tournament, as you mentioned, Bob, and I think for Georgia Tech to be successful, he's got to put up some big offensive numbers. Rutland over Marbury. And Pearl controls it. Easier for Georgia Tech to cover the shooters in the set offense. LaRue, though, still burns it. Good ball movement by Wake Forest. They are playing as well offensively, I think, as Dave Odom could hope for. When they finally do miss a shot, they get the offensive rebound. Shot clock hits 10. Really helps Wake Forest to be able to get out and pressure the three-point shooters. They can get right up on them. They don't have to worry about them getting by them. How about this outlet? Pearl takes the turnaround. That's a transition basketball. Now Maddox and Barry run into one another. 19-5, Wake Forest. The Demon Deacons can pressure on the perimeter. They don't have to worry, because if the perimeter guys go by, they have big number 21 back in the lane, and he is a formidable obstacle. Marbury, three-pointer. All 6 of his points all on threes. 19-8. Bob, he's got a look of intensity in his eyes, and it appears that he's not going to let his team
this game early.
You can hear Dick Paparo screaming to the big men. No holding.
That's all well and good for Dick to say, but Duncan's killing him in there.
And Allen fouling Harpring. That's a second foul on Sean.
Tim Duncan, not only a great rebounder, but look how well he sees the court. That's a tremendous outlet pass. Peral didn't handle it cleanly, or he may have had a layup. And then Peral just takes his time, squares up, and buries it. This is a Demon Deacon team that can play very effectively in the half court, but they can really get up and down as well. You don't think of them as a transition squad, but they sure can be.
Harpring missing. Duncan keeps it alive and finally grabs it. That is rebound number 7.
And there's another great outlet pass. That was a bullet out to half court.
If I'm not mistaken, the tournament record for rebounding is 21 by Shavlik. Duncan may get that by halftime, the way things are going. It's 21-8, and he's got 9 points, too.
The rate he's going, he's going to have a 40-40 game.
Man. Marbury continues to pump life into the Jackets.
Bob, I'm telling you, he's not going to let them die.
10-point Deacon advantage.
Those are not short three-point shots either, Bob. And Rutland's right there to contest it.
Duncan shovels to Allen. Foul on Listman. That's his first.
If Allen is going to cut through the lane when Duncan has the ball, as he does right here, it's going to make it much harder for Georgia Tech to come and give help. Harpring is going to go and help against Duncan, but it puts a doubt in your mind if your man is then going to go to the basket and he's going to create an offensive opportunity. You're always a little bit more reluctant to go and help if your guy then goes and scores as a result.
Interesting note that John Madry handed us. During the regular season in the 2 games, the largest lead by either team was 8 points. Wake Forest, in a blink of an eye it seemed, jumped off to a 14-point lead. Right now, it's a 10-point advantage for Wake Forest. Second free throw coming for Sean Allen. And Listman is able to clear to Marbury. Drew Berry. Out to Matt Harpring. Matt lost the dribble but recovers.
Harpring may be a little too quick out on the perimeter for Sean Allen.
Now LaRue matched up on Marbury. Another long 3. This one short. Harpring's able to snatch it out of there. And Harpring is able to hit it.
And here's that three-point offense, Bob. They started very slowly. Wake Forest ran off to the 14-point lead. Now it's down to 7. When you can score like Georgia Tech, you're never out of the game.
Barry Braswell in for the Deeks.
Hartford really playing off, trying to help against Duncan inside. Allen needs to continue to be active.
And we've got a foul on Harpring, his second.
You know why he got that foul, Bob? He reached in. Had he just held his position, it may have been an offensive foul.
2 on Harpring. Big call with 10:32 left in this first half. We'll be back after this message from Bud Light.
A 9-2 Georgia Tech run has closed the gap to 7, and it's the three-point offense. Matt Harpring always ready to shoot it once he catches it, and then Stephon Marbury. You've got to be so worried about his quickness to the basket. Watch how quickly he rises and shoots this 3. A long 3, and he buries it. Marbury 3 of 5 from the field. The rest of the team 2 for 10. Marbury and the three-pointers keeping Georgia Tech in it early.
Stephen Goolsby. Dan, you mentioned his great play off the bench. Now checking in for the Deacs. Goolsby had 11 against Clemson yesterday and 9 in the preceding day against Virginia. Gary Saunders has also checked into the ball game for the Yellow Jackets.
And more importantly, Bob, Harpering is on the bench with those 2 personal fouls here. We still have 10:22 left in the first half. Georgia Tech in the man-to-man. Wake Forest set has things cleared out inside for Duncan, but he shuffled his feet.
Which is fine on the dance floor, but not when you got the ball in your hands.
Well, it's okay when you have the ball in your hands, provided that you're dribbling.
Yeah. 21-14 Wake.
Man-to-man for Wake Forest. With this lineup in the game, you've really got to pay a lot of attention to Berry and Marbury. Melisma's going to pick up the foul coming over the back of Duncan.
That'll be his second.
The shots that Marbury has missed have basically been on the inside as he's taking it to the basket. He does an excellent job moving without the basketball. Rutland brushed off a screen right there, but he knows Duncan's around, and so he flips it up, tries to get it higher on the board to get it over Duncan, and as a result, he misses the shot. And Melisma now picks up his second personal foul.
Parole lobs it in. Duncan zips it out. Rutland buries the 3.
Now Marbury has had good pressure on him most of the game, but with Duncan on the ball, with the ball inside, Marbury took a step toward the interior, and Duncan can really pass him.
24-14 Deacs. Melisma. That time Duncan got help from the backboard, but boy, Melisma knew right where the big man was.
Ball just slipped out of his hands, but that's the kind of problems that the mere presence of Duncan creates.
Duncan nails that pivot foot to the floor. Tries to dribble inside. That won't work. Maddox, Parole, they fight for it. And the arrow gives it over to Georgia Tech.
With Melisma with 2 personal fouls, Maddox now trying to match up against Duncan. And that's one of the ways that you can do it. Grab him, push him, and there you see Marbury cheating into the lane, cheats a little too far. Duncan whips that pass over there, and Rutland doesn't take any time at all to get it off.
I continue to marvel at the passing abilities of Tim Duncan.
It's one of the parts of this game, Bob, that has really improved.
And Maddox is able to score over Tim.
That is a tough shot inside by Maddox. That's a place, if Georgia Tech can get some offense, they desperately need it. With everybody out covering the 3-point shooters, if you can score inside, you can loosen the defense up a bit.
Braswell able to protect it away from Berry.
Braswell, another one of those guys who's played very well off the bench.
Shot clock under 10.
You notice as the clock goes down, the ball goes to the hands of Rutland. And he dribbles it off the foot.
Out of bounds to the Jackets with 7:43. The 5th turnover for the Deacs. Timeout in Greensboro. We will be back after this message from CarQuest Auto Parts. Nations Bank, a corporate partner of the '96 Olympics, presents this Olympic Salute to Excellence question. Who is the only athlete to have ever won a gold medal in both the Winter and Summer Olympics? Interesting query, and we'll have the answer a little bit later. Wake Forest is at 10 of its first 13 to build this 24-16 lead. Georgia Tech 6 of 17 and relying on the threes to get an extra point on 4 of those 6 field goals.
Wake Forest has turned it over a couple of times, Bob. 5 to be specific, and they only average about 13 turnovers a game, and that's really been the only part of their game. They're shooting the ball very, very well, but the turnover is the only part of the Wake Forest game here early that has been a little suspect, and it has allowed Georgia Tech to stay in the game. And
it's out of bounds to Wake Forest. Rusty LaRue coming back into the ball game now for the Deeks. And it's going to be Braswell to go out. 7:24 remaining in the first half. Speaking of the Deacons shooting, Dan, against Virginia, 44% from the floor yesterday. Against the Clemson Tigers, 43%. So the Deacons really cranked it up a notch today for the championship game.
Bob, they've had a couple of more transition opportunities today, and I just think that that's very, very important. As now Maddox, we showed you a replay before where he had his arms wrapped around Duncan. He did it that time. Now Maddox has 2 fouls, so the foul problems for Bobby Cremins starting to add up. Trying to find Duncan there. He wraps his arm around him. Duncan gives him a little shove. Now he wraps his arm around him again. Now he's grabbing him. Now he wraps his arms around him again. Tough to guard that guy.
Rusty LaRue. He has been a thorn in the side of Georgia Tech throughout his career at Wake Forest. He had 19 in Atlanta earlier this year, and just by a split second missed winning the game on that last shot against the Yellow Jackets. Here's Maddox. Outside Harpering. That's a 3. His second 3-pointer of the game.
Georgia Tech really needs to turn up the pressure on defense. Wake Forest having too easy a time running their offense. They're getting the cuts they want, they're getting the passes that they want, and they're getting very easy shot opportunities.
Allen travels.
That's good defense by Harpering. A good idea by Wake Forest to attack Harpering, though, because he's got 2 personal fouls, although that is the 6th Wake Forest turnover.
26-19. The Wake lead stands at 7. The biggest lead, 14. And that's a charge on Marbury.
Marbury, as we mentioned, very aggressive on the offensive end. Sees the chance to get past Duncan and actually slips going inside. He was trying to pass that ball, but he took it in a bit too close.
Well, it will not be a player control foul.
That's right. It was ruled that the contact occurred after Marbury had passed the ball. So since it is not a player control foul, and that is foul number 7 against Wake Forest, or excuse me, against Georgia Tech, Wake Forest will get to shoot the 1-and-1. And because Wake Forest is shooting 1-1, Allen, who left the game, has to come back in to do it because he was the person who drew the charge.
Stay tuned at halftime when Dick Vitale presents the DirecTV Dish Out the Winners sweepstakes. Allen rolls in his 3rd point of the afternoon. Young man from Raleigh and East Wake High School who played for Phil Spence, the former NC State standout, then to Anderson Junior College and now with the Deacons. Larry Rose
polishing that ball.
That's right. Sean Allen with a smile, looking for point number 4, and he missed it. Harpering jumps in to claim it. Foul on Goolsby.
You know, Bob, for as well as Wake Forest has played offensively in this game, a Georgia Tech score right here, a 2-point basket, would cut the lead to 6. So this Georgia Tech team, with their 3-point offense, has stayed within striking distance.
The dish and the bank for Marbury. He's got 11. Great feed.
Now we've got a 6-point game.
The Wake Forest faithful making some noise, as well as those representing Georgia Tech. Duncan been silent offensively the last few minutes, but picks up again with his 11th.
That is an impossible shot to defend. You keep Duncan about 6 feet from the basket. If he's going to come up with that jump hook from there, there's just nobody who can guard that.
Maddox. The 4 threes yesterday against Maryland, his first today. 29-24.
The other guys get 2 and you get 3. You gradually creep back in the game.
It may take a while, but you'll get there. Deeks up 14 early. A miss. But Duncan is able to tightrope that sideline. No, that big toe hit the stripe.
Duncan has such amazing hands. That was good defensive pressure by Georgia Tech. Duncan was in a tough spot. They double teamed him. There was nowhere for him to go, and they did it without foul.
59-24 Wake Forest. Marbury penetrates and missed it. Even though he knew he beat Duncan, he felt like Tim would be coming from behind. Travel on the roof.
Rusty sort of caught that ball in between steps, and he was trying to get his feet stopped.
Both coaches exhorting their troops. Turnovers really piling up now for the Deacs team. That's 8. Harper just barrels in. Boy, he's got to be careful. Playing with 2 personals here with 4:20 left in the half. LaRue reverses. Duncan getting gripped down. He does. Tips it his own miss. He got that with one hand.
Just ripped it away from Barry. My. Wake Forest now in the zone.
Marbury for 3. Too long. Saunders has it. Nowhere to go inside. Saunders takes the outside shot and misses it. 11 rebounds for Tim Duncan and 13 points.
He's still got more than 3 minutes to go in the first half. Man-to-man for Georgia Tech.
Rutland for 3. Bang.
Georgia Tech isn't the only team that can shoot threes.
Barry to Harpring. Long 3 from Barry.
That wasn't a very good possession for Georgia Tech. In too much of a hurry. Rutland's feeling it, huh?
4 3-pointers for the Hampton, Virginia sophomore, and Bobby Cremins wants a 20-second timeout to talk about it. Georgia Tech was down 14, whittled it back to 5, but Rutland and Duncan have spurted the Deacs up 13.
Bobby Cremins calls a timeout. He wants to talk about it, but he wants his players to do something about it. Not a lot of defensive pressure out on the perimeter, and early in the game that resulted in easy passes inside for Tim Duncan. Rutland just not very close to him, and Rutland just pulls up and fires.
Tony Rutland, Dan, in the game in Winston-Salem nailed 6 against Georgia Tech, and that's the high water mark for a Deacon in a game this season. Boy, he's got some stroke.
And his game has just improved and improved and improved as he has understood his role and gained confidence as this season has gone on. And you've got a guy like Duncan on the inside and those 3-point threats on the perimeter. This Wake Forest team is a lot to handle.
Maddox in and out with the 3. The rebound last touched by Perall. Georgia Tech has it. We have a timeout here in Greensboro with 2:20 remaining in the half. The Deacs by 13. And we'll be back after this message from Bud Light.
An 8-0 Wake Forest run has the Deacons back up by 13, and Tim Duncan, having an outstanding first half, rips this rebound away from Maddox, and Barry goes up, misses the shot, but with great hands tips it in. Bob Duncan, 6 of 8 from the field, 13 points, 12 rebounds. Tim Duncan's father on the left, his sister on the right. They are certainly enjoying the performance by Tim Duncan. On the other side of the coin, we talked about the big stars and how the big stars must produce in this kind of a situation. Drew Barry, 0 for 4, hasn't scored in the game.
They can't afford, Georgia Tech, to go without a contribution from Drew offensively. Harpering.
Georgia Tech, the last few possessions, nothing but the three-point offense, not even an attempt to get the ball inside, and they've gone cold from three-point range.
When you're a player, Dan, and you see the type of start that Tim Duncan had in this game, where he got every rebound and every basket to start the game, does that plant the seed? You say, well, nothing inside the day, boys. We're going to have to win this with jump shots?
I don't think you think that consciously, Bob, but I think that once he blocks a couple of shots, subconsciously you say, okay, I'm not going in there again.
Duncan! What a play! I heard someone say that he doesn't play with a great deal of passion and intensity out there. Are you kidding me? Marbury blocked by Perrault. Boy, the Deacs are coming in waves now. LaRue up top. Perrault. He travels.
Tim Duncan can't get the rebound himself, tips it, sees his teammate Perrault. That is simply a great play by Duncan. He knew Perrault was there. He looks at him before he tips the ball. Is there anything that Tim Duncan hasn't done this afternoon?
We have talked this weekend about the great performance of Randolph Childress from a year ago when he carried the Deacs to the championship, and we were all sitting around at breakfast this morning and said, well, that was, can't top that. Here is Exhibit A for '96, the championship game performance of Tim Duncan. Harpering, blocked by Perrault, taken away by Duncan.
2 blocks and 2 possessions for Perrault.
Wake takes a 20. Rutland just wanted to keep playing, fire up another 3.
Rutland thinks Dave Odom's overcoaching at the moment.
Our nation's bank Olympic salute to excellence question. Who is the only athlete to win gold at Winter and Summer Olympics? American Eddie Egan in boxing in 1920, in bobsled in 1932.
Marbury looking a little frustrated over on the bench. Harpering does a nice job getting open, but remember, Perrault's 6'10" and moves very well. He closed the ground that Harpering had created with the quick dribble. Just got a fingertip on the ball.
Tim Duncan's first half, 13 points, 15 rebounds. And I trust our statistician, Mr. Madry, implicitly. He says he's missed 2 shots, but I can't recall. 6 of 8 from the floor is Duncan.
He also has 2 blocked shots. The difference between the shot clock and the game clock, Bob, is in tenths of a second.
So Rutland goes to work. Goolsby can't beat the clock, and the first half is over. Bobby Crummins and the Jackets have their work cut out for them. There is a fire in the eye of the Deacons today, led by the big man Tim Duncan. Drew Barry shut out in the first half, and Georgia Tech trails by 15 at the break. Paul Cameron.
Take a look at our 4 game plan for Wake Forest. They certainly can't let up in this game. We said substitutes should either maintain or improve. Well, for Wake Forest, they need to maintain. No mercy. Keep crushing them. And for Georgia Tech, they certainly need to improve. And I think the way you do that is you attack on offense, you attack on defense. In the first half, they were spread out to the perimeter. Michael Maddox, Eddie Alisma, I think, need to get involved on the inside on offense. Drew Barry needs to get involved in something on the offensive end. Those 3 guys, you can think of them, 3-headed monster. Tricycle doesn't work very well with one of the wheels off, and Drew Barry needs to get going.
Drew Barry had hit 4 of 10 3-pointers in the tournament before today. At this stage has belonged to that man, Tim Duncan. 39-24.
Oh, that's the score. That's not Duncan's points and rebounds. Okay. Ricky Perrault had a pretty good first half.
Yes, he did.
Had 2 blocked shots. He had 4 assists as well.
The tournament record for total rebounds belongs to Ronnie Shavlik with 54. Tim Duncan just 5 away from that after his 15 in the first half. The championship game record for most rebounds is 21, held by Shavlik at 55. And Duncan obviously has a great shot at that.
Well, you figure there's going to be a couple missed shots in the second half, so since he's getting them all. Man-to-man defense by Georgia Tech.
LaRue. This rebound goes to Alisman.
It's only the 8th rebound of the game for Georgia Tech. Of course, Wake Forest hasn't missed very many, so it's hard to get rebounds when the other guys aren't missing.
Marbury up top, Alisman. Here's Drew Berry. Maddox.
Berry only had 2 assists in the first half as well, Bob, so Georgia Tech's offense struggling all the way around, and I think they need to make a run here early in the second half just to establish themselves. Put maybe a seed of doubt in the mind of the Demon Deacons.
Alisman clearing it out to Maddox.
Wake Forest doing a good job getting back on defense. Georgia Tech hasn't really been able to get the transition game in high gear.
Maddox rolls it up and in.
Duncan actually was looking away that time. He turned his head just for a moment, just at the point that Maddox made the move to the basket. Terry almost had that.
Yes. Here's LaRue.
So we talk about with attacking, Bob. When you attack, sometimes you give up some things, but they really need to make something happen on defense.
Maddox pops out on Rutland, and Tony throws it away. Harpring coming 2-on-1 with Marbury, and Harpring buries 10 for Matt, and Georgia Tech has cut the Wake advantage to 39-28.
That steal creates a transition basket, and that's where Georgia Tech needs to go.
You look sometimes for shifts in momentum and what would cause a particular change in a game. Sometimes it's halftime.
Bob, we saw that play at the end of the first half as Peral lets go with a 3 and carries it, and that helps. Right at the end of the first half, Dave Odom called the 22nd timeout, and Tony Rutland was a little irritated because he wanted to keep playing. I'm sure Dave Odom, with the way his squad was playing in the first half, wanted to just keep playing.
42-28. Harpring barrels in.
Duncan's there. I don't know whether he got his hand on it or not, but he certainly bothered Harpring.
Duncan was still able to power it in the bucket.
3 fouls on Maddox. Bob, that's one you just have to forget about. If Tim Duncan is trying to windmill this baby with one hand, good screen by Peral, you may have a shot, but he's going to take it up and down, go down with 2 hands. There's nothing you're going to do right here except commit the foul.
Tim's second free throw attempt today. And just hit the front of the rim.
Well, there has to be some weakness in the game.
44-28. Berry driving and missing, and Allen rebounded, and Berry reached in for the foul.
Bob, you get the idea that Drew Berry's a little bit of frustration starting to creep in. Keep in mind that Bobby Kremen's squad coming in here has won 9 games in a row and been very impressive doing it.
And all against ACC competition. Saw the latest RPI report this morning that included games of last night. Georgia Tech with the toughest schedule in the country. Allen able to recover. Nope. Berry takes it away. Up to Marbury, and on Peral, score it, count it, and a foul.
Peral tried to get in position to draw the charge, but Berry and Marbury out on the fast break in a 2-on-1 situation. LaRue trying to hustle back. Peral gets the foul because he never really got his body turned to face Marbury. Marbury hits him, and Peral is still turned. Dave Odom knows that that's not a very good play, and Georgia Tech going to the free throw line in the person of Stephon Marbury for their first free throw of the game. And that's an indication, Bob, as Marbury gets it to go, how much they've stayed on the perimeter. You're not going to draw foul opportunities and create free throw opportunities standing on the perimeter shooting jumper.
Rutland will take it. Marbury put a hand in his face. Overall, Rutland takes it again. Good!
He just needs to step back 2 or 3 feet.
Yeah, he was way too close on that first one. And a foul inside. And it's on Peral. It will be his third.
Well, Peral and Harpring are really going at one another.
Tim Duncan with the big dunk, and the Deacons with a big lead, up 16. ACC basketball is brought to you in part by Toyota. 47-31. The parents of Ricky Peral here in the United States, coming from Spain, their first visit and the first chance to see Ricky play in this ACC tournament.
And in this second half, they have seen Ricky Peral in hand-to-hand combat with Matt Harpring, and Peral is doing a very, very good job.
A 16-point lead for the Deacs, Georgia Tech basketball. Saunders, Berry, Harpring, Marbury, and Alusma out there for the Jackets. Still can't get one to go.
Bob, that almost looked like a diamond in one or box in one against Stephon Marbury. Duncan looking for that lob pass inside.
Missing. Marbury is able to save it. Tech again advancing down 16. And Berry throws it away. Marbury cut to the bucket. Pass goes to the bench. Mr. Duncan. Boy, he's got to love what this game of basketball has done for his son. Boy, and vice versa. 47-31.
Not quite as animated as Dave Odom.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
The hook from 10 feet. Haven't seen that one today. 49-31. 17 points, 17 rebounds for Duncan. And a steal. And a pass. And Rutland.
Oh, Rutland just hurt himself. Rutland just hurt his knee. You can hear Rutland holler, and that might be a cramp, but you could hear him cry out in pain even before the play got to the basket.
Braswell will come in to take his place.
That looks like what it might be is a cramp. Now remember, this is the third game in 3 days. We forget sometime at the rate that these kids perform, this is a tough thing physically. You can see there's no contact there, anything else. He cries out in pain and goes down, and he grabs. That looks like he's grabbing his knee, Bob. It's hard to tell here. He plants that foot. You can see on that replay very clearly he's shouting out before Harpring even gets there. There was no contact at all.
Tony going to the locker room, having scored 15, and you'll be able to hear it, I believe, as Rutland comes at you. And you could hear him holler out. You're exactly right, Dan. Right before Harpring got there. 49-31.
And that's got to be a matter of great concern.
Yes. Berry won't go, and Duncan's got another one. Later today, both these teams will find out where they're headed in the NCAA, and you want to have everybody healthy. Braswell. Goolsby got a hand on it. Marbury alone drains it. 17 for Stefan.
Bob Berry still hasn't scored. His lowest point total of the year is 3. And with Berry not scoring, that's a very bad sign for Georgia Tech in those games where Berry has scored well. The Yellow Jackets win, but if he scores poorly, Duncan stepped out of bounds. If he does not score well, then Georgia Tech loses. In fact, only 3 players have scored for Georgia Tech today.
The Deacs have turned it over 13 times. Only Harpering, Maddox, and Marbury have scored today for Georgia Tech. The Deacs 13 turnovers now. Alispa, and it goes. So Eddie joins the ranks in the scoring column. More pressure from Berry.
That's excellent pressure defense on the basketball.
Goolsby baseline, back to Duncan. Parole. Big 3. 2 big threes for Parole here in the second half.
Parole now has 10.
Maddox trying to get the 4th on Ricky. Nice turnaround.
Georgia Tech offense, Bob, looks like it's a little more in sync out there at the moment, but unfortunately they're so far behind they can't afford to be trading baskets. Gonna have to make some plays on the defensive end.
Braswell. And Alispa blocked it. Duncan gets it back and banks it in.
Duncan just looking for more rebounds.
Braswell.
Wake Forest man-to-man has been very effective.
Maddox and LaRue knocked that one away. Still loose. LaRue claims it. And baseballs it up to Braswell. Duncan. Now Wake resets. And this one behind Goolsby, out of bounds to the Yellow Jackets.
Dave Odom giving some instructions over there on the sideline.
Time out. We'll be back after this from Bud Light. The 43rd ACC Basketball Championship from the Greensboro Coliseum. And the Deacons in control, 54-38.
Tim Duncan has been extremely aggressive on the offensive end. Alisma actually got a hand on that one, but all it does is keep the ball alive for Duncan to get it back in the basket. What a game Tim Duncan is having. What a tournament Tim Duncan has had. In this game, 19 points, 19 rebounds, 2 blocked shots. He had 4 assists in the first half.
And fast approaching ACC tournament records in rebounding. Randolph Childress rewrote the scoring record book for the tournament here last year. And now we understand from the Wake Forest locker room a mild knee sprain. They are hoping that he will be able to return.
The hope, obviously, is that if he can't return today, and they may not need him today, but the hope would be that he'd certainly be ready to go by next weekend. Oh, wow.
Indeed. Oh, wow.
He just keeps moving further and further back.
20 from Marbury. Sorry, Dan.
Keep in mind, Bob, that there's plenty of possessions remaining in this game, and that Georgia Tech's firepower is still there.
Another fine block by Alisma, and it's out of bounds to Tech. Look at the range on this three-point shot.
But the amazing thing is how quickly he gets himself ready to go. Right there, he looks as if he's going to put it on the deck to go by you. You don't expect him to rise up from that far away. There's no defense against that.
Marbury backdoor cutting. Got it up over Duncan, but a foul on Braswell.
Marbury makes the great cut. What quickness to get started, but he knows Duncan's there, and Marbury has not had any luck getting it over Duncan and in the basket. Peral very nearly got that pass. And for Braswell, it's injury along with the insult because he gets hit in the face after he gets called for the foul.
Stefan's 21st. The announcers for this game, selected and compensated by Raycom and Jefferson Pilot Sports, and the use of this broadcast without their express permission is prohibited. Drew Barry walking back to the scorer's table. He'll check in at this point.
Marbury's now got 22 points. The rest of his team has 21.
And that man has failed to scratch. Drew Barry harpering with 10. 54-43.
Marbury has kept Georgia Tech within range. And again, with their three-point offense, 11 points is within range.
Tony Rutland, you see in the corner there, coming back to the Wake Forest bench. Down the lane, Braswell. Great look from Duncan. Hard bounce, Saunders up and in.
That's the Georgia Tech transition game. Rutland's got a knee brace on, Bob.
And putting on his warm-up jersey on the Wake bench. 56-45. Inside.
Oh, that was the left hand. Great screen by LaRue.
58-45. Lisma runs it down. Barry harpering.
Harpering's been very quiet in the second half.
Lisma outside. Here's Harpering going up and scoring. That never say die attitude of Matt Harper.
It's an 11-point game again.
58-47.
Man-to-man for Georgia Tech. Near steal by Saunders. Now he gets it.
Marbury comes up with a chance to cut it into single digits. Barry, yes. The ice has been broken.
And it's an 8-point game, Bob.
And still 8:10 to play. Timeout for the Deeks. Bobby Cremens watching his Yellow Jackets come back to life with 8:08 to play. It's an 8-point ball game. Deacons 58-50. Let's take a look at our smart play, and it comes from yesterday's Maryland-Georgia Tech game. Stephon Marbury for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets coming up with the steal and hoop here. You see Maryland rebounds, and watch Marbury pick it off and lay it in. And that helped put Tech in the title game. He's got some more up his sleeve, I'm sure, in the final 8:08. There's that brace you mentioned, Dan, on the right knee of Tony Rutland.
Well, we've talked about the tremendous performance that Tim Duncan has had this afternoon, but Stephon Marbury has kept his team within range. Now, if Drew Barry can get hot, Georgia Tech still has a shot. It really changes the tone of the Wake Forest offense without Rutland.
Maddox with his 4th foul.
Peral gets the good screen, and now Maddox can beat Duncan across one way. But watch Duncan, how quickly he comes back the other way. And again, that's a product of the guards finding Duncan as soon as he's open. If that pass is just delayed a second, then Maddox has a chance to recover. And Rutland coming back in the game. Dave Odom knows how important it is at this stage of the game to have his point guard, even a gimpy-legged point guard, in the game.
22 for Duncan. So Maddox with the 4 personals, blocks out on Peral, but Duncan strips the cords. 60 to 50. And a timeout in Greensboro. 7:53 remaining in the championship game.
Wake Forest leads it by 10, and it continues to be in large part the Tim Duncan show. Stephon Marbury, however, keeping his own Yellow Jackets in the game, getting it to Barry. That was Barry's first 3 of the game. Tim Duncan draws a lot of attention, and as a result, Braswell's open. Duncan, who's done everything else, also has a couple of assists today. Duncan off the screen, great position inside with the left hand. What a ball game.
The numbers, and you can add to that line 2 blocked shots today. Sensational. But yet, the Yellow Jackets are within range. Barry hit a 3 a moment ago, and that may be a sign of things to come. Jackets warming up to the task at hand. 9 out of their last 10. And Barry faking, firing, and missing. And the rebound out of bounds. Last touched by Goolsby.
Bob, that's an indication of how far in the hole Georgia Tech got themselves, that they've made 9 of their last 10, and they're still behind by 10 points.
Wake trying to get set up defensively here. As that ball was played in, Goolsby and Braswell were pointing at one another as to which way the matchups would go. Perrault draws Harpering. Maddox. Now Marbury driving in, and Braswell fouled him.
Just before we went to the timeout, Tony Rutland re-entered the game, but Rutland's not out there now. And if you look over at the Wake Forest bench, they're working on Rutland's knee over on the bench. Now, this is an extremely important game. You want to win the ACC championship, no question about it. But you've got to make sure that Rutland is ready for next week, so you don't want to have him aggravate that injury now. And he's putting on his warm-ups again. We may not see him for the rest of the game.
Inside to Maddox. Outside. Saunders. Duncan rebound. His 20th. Later today, the Deacs will receive their 6th straight NCAA bid. Second longest active streak in the ACC.
Foul on Goolsby. Dick DeParo calling an illegal screen, and Dave Odom insisting that Goolsby was pushed from behind. It's like the evil twin argument.
Georgia Tech would love to add to that total of 19 here, and Marbury a little long this time. Rebound and out of bounds is Goolsby.
Goolsby with the laugh. He went way up for that rebound. The first thing he did on his way down before he even got to the ground was look at his feet, and he could see he was going to land right on the O there in Coliseum.
A mix-up for the Deacs left Marbury alone.
Well, those last 2 3-pointers that Marbury has attempted have not been works of art. That hit the board rather than the rim, so the shot clock still ticking.
Nice feed. And the bucket goes.
Saunders tips it in.
Gary's second bucket. He's got 4.
Eight-point game again.
LaRue drives it hard. Says, why not? I'm open. Nails it. And a timeout taken by Georgia Tech. And Bobby Cremins really in the ear of Marbury. I think about some of those 3-point shots with 5:56 to play. A timeout in Greensboro and a 10-point lead for Dave Odom and the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Wake Forest 62, Georgia Tech 52. The rebounding numbers for Tim Duncan. He has 20 rebounds in this game, which gives him 54 for the tournament, tying the all-time record of Ronnie Shavlik, established in the second ACC tournament. And a reminder of some of the great centers in this league, Dan. Tommy Burleson with those wonderful NC State squads, an every case winner in back-to-back years. One of 2 men to do it, Larry Miller being the other.
Got a quick look there at Tony Rutland on the bench now with a or an ice pack on his knee rather than a knee pack on his ice. He's got an ice pack on his knee.
And with 5 2:45 to play. The possession's becoming critical for Georgia Tech. Berry long with the three. Goolsby got tangled up with Marbury, and now a foul on Parole. That will be his fourth.
And for Wake Forest, you want to move your feet, play tough defense, force Georgia Tech to shoot the ball over top. You'd rather not foul and creep closer to the time in the game when Georgia Tech would be able to score without running time off the clock.
Harpering. That's a three.
He may be the best catch and shoot guy in this league. He just catches it and buries it. .55. It's good pressure.
Much more active now, Georgia Tech, particularly on the ball. Of course, it helps to have Rutland out there.
Marbury commits the foul against LaRue. LaRue is a guy who will deceive you. You'd play Rusty LaRue for that three-point shot, but he has a deceptive first step. He doesn't really blow by anybody to the basket, but he gets his head and shoulders past you, and he forces you to commit the foul.
Under 5 minutes remaining.
Duncan has just been phenomenal attacking the basket today.
Berry leaves it for Saunders. The runner is good.
That's really a dangerous pass by Drew Berry. Bobby Cremins is exhorting his troops on the defensive end. They've got it back to 7 once again.
LaRue drives.
Goes again.
And he puts it in.
Talk about a guy stepping up in a tight spot.
Berry fouled by Ricky Parole.
Tim Duncan gives the bump, creates a little bit of space. Alisma not tall enough or strong enough to keep him out of there. Bobby Cremins' reaction, he knows that there is no defense against that.
Drew Berry will shoot 2 free throws. Just the 1 3-pointer today. Drew Berry with 1 field goal and 10 attempts. And now a rare miss at the foul line. An 82% foul shooter. And I think you're right, Dan, as we got a peek there at Tony Rutland. He may well be done for the day. Bigger fish to fry.
But if he is done for the day, what a job Rusty LaRue has done stepping in for him. You know, it looks like Marbury almost is playing for the steal and not expecting LaRue to get by him, but LaRue showing that toughness has gotten 2 drives to the basket for buckets.
And now LaRue takes a 3. Gets it back.
There he goes again.
Well, Rusty LaRue knows something about running a club. The quarterback of the Deacs. Here's Braswell, now to Duncan. Timmy with a jump shot this time.
12 of 16 from the floor.
Boy, Harpering just beat Parole and got a great pass. He moves so well without the ball.
He certainly does, but Georgia Tech's running out of time. They look better on offense, but their defense has to step it up. You cannot trade baskets with somebody who's got you down by 10.
I would say if Duncan gets his hands on the ball, just don't let him shoot it. Foul him. Put him on the line. Braswell driving. That's no good. Rebound, LaRue saves it. Gets it to Allen. Safety valve, Parole, and Wake resets. .243 left.
LaRue just doing a great job protecting the ball.
Duncan shut off that time. Shot clock at 7. LaRue faking, firing. Hit it!
And that's the three.
71-60. Marbury blocked by Duncan, rebounded by Duncan. And a foul on Tech. 21 boards for Duncan. 3 blocks, the 21 rebounds, tying the ACC championship game record for most rebounds. LaRue with the friendly bounce, and the Deacs lead by 11. Now this from the ACC.
The Demon Deacons lead it by 11, and Tim Duncan has done it inside. He's done it outside. He had a shot where he almost got a three, but his foot was on the line. Here, the pump fake, the one step, just buries it. Dave Odom looking.
That's a familiar look. When Randolph was hitting all those baskets last year against the Tar Heels, Dave had that same applause and look at us.
Right, but Dave, you know, there's that little moment, and it's only just a fraction of a moment of elation, and then he turns around and he's right back to business.
2:02 the time remaining, and 71-60. Drew Barry has set a new record for career assists in the tournament with 59. He cashed them all in for a few more threes today in his ball club in the championship game.
He's only scored 8 points, all of those coming in the second half.
He's had 8 assists in this game.
But the numbers in this game that are the most impressive: Duncan, 27 points, 21 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 block shots, 12 of 16 from the floor.
Rusty became a dad on the 31st of January. Wife Tammy and Riley LaRue. He's really into this game, isn't he? 71-60.
Rusty LaRue has scored 7 points in the last couple of minutes here, and he has prevented Georgia Tech from getting the ball.
3rd foul on Marbury. 2 minutes left.
That's team foul number 6 against Georgia Tech. So the next Georgia Tech foul, Wake Forest will be shooting.
Marbury going for that poke away. LaRue protects it. Now Barry steps in front of Allen, and Sean pushed off to try to get the ball back. His 3rd.
Dave Odom is going to call Sean Allen over and tell him the last thing we want to do here at the moment is foul.
Georgia Tech will be shooting 1-1. It's Drew Barry at the line. 4 fouls now, they tell us, on Sean Allen.
That's the kind of day it's been for Georgia Tech.
5th point for Drew. With his 8 assists today, Barry becomes the all-time Georgia Tech assist leader, surpassing Travis Best. Harpring got it. Georgia Tech wants to take a timeout. Harpring for the 5th straight game with 20 or more points, and it pulls Bobby Cremins and company within 8. Tech takes its second half 22nd timeout. 71-63.
Harpring just has a knack moving without the ball. He's open in the corner. Look how fast he catches that ball and squeezes it off. And now it's an 8-point game once again.
Then I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned Harpring's ability to catch it and shoot it, but Tech's guards really give him the ball in a great spot. He doesn't have to go reaching for it.
Bob, we've been talking the entire game about what a nice job the Wake Forest perimeter guys have done getting the ball to Duncan in scoring position. And for a shooter, you're absolutely right. It's essential that, I mean, if he's got to catch the ball down around his ankles, he's not going to be able to catch and shoot. So where the pass is thrown is extremely important. Again, we'll remind you, Rutland out of the ball game with that knee injury.
And Tech throwing up the pressure. Marbury can't get the trap, but they throw it away. Tech down 8. Barry fumbled it, lost it. Marbury's got it. Finds Maddox in the corner. Good. Time Jackets. They've cut it to 5. The second three-pointer for Mike Maddox today. And Georgia Tech capitalizing on the Wake Forest miscue.
Drew Berry is very fortunate here that he doesn't lose the ball. Makes a good decision to not try to dribble it again. You've got Harpering on one side ready to squeeze it off. Maddox on the other. That's Maddox's 7th three-point basket of the tournament. Marbury doing a nice job penetrating, drawing the defense, finding the open guy. Tim Duncan running at you, but Maddox not intimidated, buries it.
Each club has claimed 3 ACC championships. And it looked for all afternoon like this one would belong to Wake Forest. But Georgia Tech has hit a couple of key buckets late. And a 5-point deficit on the board right now. Dan, the timeout situation with Tech a full timeout remaining. They have used their second half 20. And Tech's also got the possession arrow, a very key thing to point out as well.
Bob, it's going to be very difficult for Georgia Tech, down 5 with a minute and 26 seconds left. But what they have done very effectively when they were in the game in the first half, it was because they were forcing turnovers. Now, in the last couple of possessions, they forced some turnovers. That's what the defense needs to do. They do not have time to let Wake Forest run a lot of time off the clock. I think this is a situation where Georgia Tech might want to look at giving a foul early in the possession. It's a one-on-one opportunity for Wake Forest.
You know, and as crazy as it sounds, of course, he's gonna be the man to put the ball in play. But if Duncan gets the ball back, that might be the guy you want to foul. If there's been one chink in the armor for Tim Duncan this season, it's been the missed free throws in late stages of close games. Now, Wake's won some of those games, but he has had some difficulty. Now LaRue's going to play it in. They get it to Goolsby. And he is fouled by Berry.
Did not appear that Berry was trying to foul him, but in this situation, it's a one-on-one opportunity. So even if he goes down and makes both of them, Georgia Tech has time to run it up. And if they can get a 3 to go, Bob, you trade the 2 points for the 3 points and you inch closer.
Now Braswell ripping off his jersey. I suspect there's some blood on that
There's
jersey.
some blood on it, but what they do is they go over to the trainer and they say, is this jersey saturated? And any trainer worth his salt is going to say no. And particularly in this situation, you get him back in the game. There you go. Of course the answer is no. Get him back out there.
Now Braswell.
He's got a cut on his chin, possibly. Now Dave Odom, he wants to look at this. Now Braswell's going to have to come out of the game.
Allen will come in to take his place.
So the blood on the shirt isn't a problem. The trainer can wave that baby off, but if he's bleeding, he's got to come out till they stop the bleeding.
This gives Stephen Goolsby a lot of time to think about this one-on-one. First time at the line today. And Goolsby misses the front end. Up ahead to Drew Berry. Berry's going to take it all the way to the bucket. The foul before the shot on LaRue. (71-66). See the foul clearly coming before Berry tried to shoot it. Now Braswell is right back in.
Now they got the Band-Aid working over there.
Johnny Rhodes had one left over from yesterday. Drew Berry, yes.
Hasn't scored effectively, but has 9 assists and 3 steals.
No good. Duncan the board. Splits the double team and squeezes it ahead to Braswell. A minute 10 left. Braswell picks up his dribble, and Wake gets a timeout.
I don't think Dave Odom wanted that timeout.
Frank Scagliotta turned and pointed to the table and said, timeout, Wake. And Dave said, Who called that one?
Well, it's one of the kids on the court. They saw that Braswell was trapped and they didn't think he could get out of it, and somebody called timeout.
71-67. 1:05 remaining. One of the great finishes a year ago as the Deacs and Tar Heels went to overtime. And a good spot here just to go back in our memory banks to the title game on this floor a year ago. The tournament belonged to Randolph Childress. He wanted some defensive pressure. Didn't matter. He'd have hit 50 if he needed to. Stackhouse tried to tie it and did. The game went to overtime, and then in OT, Randolph's drive to the bucket and bucket to win it 82-80. But Carolina still had a chance. The Tar Heels worked the basketball from out of bounds at midcourt. Jerry Stackhouse misses, but watch how close Pierce Landry's tip comes to going in. Randolph made history, and now the Deacons are trying to duplicate an ACC championship. You see Tim Duncan there up on the podium. Wake Forest's center has established a new tournament rebounding record with 55, breaking Ronnie Shavlik's old record by 1. So as Randolph piled up the points last year, it's been Duncan with the rebounds this year. But the outcome of this one is in doubt. 71-67 Wake Forest, and 1:05 remaining. An all-world performance from Tim Duncan. Deacs have 23 seconds on the shot clock.
I think you'll see Georgia Tech foul before that shot clock runs down. Goolsby just missed one. I think I might give him a try again.
Oh, and he was standing on the line.
Now he has gone over and back, Bob.
The tightrope. And it burns Wake Forest. 19 Deacon turnovers.
He's going to take that pivot foot. Go.
Now Berry driving in. Back out. Maddox for 3. Good! 1-point ball game.
Now you've got time to play tough D. You don't need to foul here.
In the middle to Braswell, and Maddox got it.
Yes, that's right. That's a foul.
And that will be the 5th on Mike Maddox.
Mike Maddox has hit some big three-point baskets in this tournament. None bigger than that one right there. It's his second 3 in the last couple of possessions. Braswell going to the free throw line.
With 2:02 remaining, Wake led 71-60. Georgia Tech has hit 10 straight points to cut it to 1. And Maddox is done for the day, so a big three-point weapon has been lost.
An important 15-point performance by Maddox. Wake Forest only 4 of 9 from the free throw line today. The Demon Deacons struggled shooting free throws against non-conference foes, Bob. They're almost a 75% free throw shooting against conference opponents, but they're struggling today.
And now Jerry Braswell, bloodied but unbowed, steps up to the line.
And even if he makes 2, Georgia Tech within a three-pointer of tying the game. That's a heck of a bandit.
69% free throw shooter. Braswell lines up the second shot. This to put the Deacons up 3. .73-70. Marbury drive. Marbury scores. 1-point lead for the Deacs.
Shot clock's off.
And Marbury with the foul on Braswell.
I think they're going to call the foul on Harpering, Bob.
It is on Harpering. It's his 3rd.
Marbury powers the ball to the basket. Good quick move. Duncan was screened out of that play by Harpering. Marbury able to get all the way to the hoop, felt the pressure on the three-point defense and decided to take it all the way to the basket. Still a 1-and-1.
for Braswell. He hit a big three-pointer in overtime to secure that win at Florida State in the regular year. Burned the Tar Heels with 4 3-pointers in Winston-Salem, and now trying to ice it, or at least help ice it at the line for the Deacs.
Big free throws.
75-72. Under 30 seconds. Marbury again driving. It's out of bounds to Georgia Tech. Into a nearby phone booth. Here he comes. And right out of bounds. Tech needs 3 to tie. Marbury drives, a foul on the floor on Braswell. His third. Tech has not even looked at a 3 these last couple of possessions. Shoot 2.
They've been very closely defended on the perimeter, but you're right, Bob. Marbury has looked to go right to the basket, trying to get a three-point play that way. The other thing, Bob, is it's really good use of the clock by Georgia Tech. They can get the 2. Now they got to rely on Wake Forest to miss some free throws, but they keep getting the 2s, keeping the pressure on. Still, if they can get a steal here, still a 1-point game, 19.4 left.
26 for Marbury. LaRue to get it in. And he gets it into Duncan. And he is...
That's what you were saying. That's the guy that they were looking to foul.
And now he will shoot 2 shots. That will be the 10th team foul on Georgia Tech. So at least the pressure of a 1-and-1 is gone, but it's just a 1-point lead. At 75-74 with 18 seconds left. 4th on Harpering.
Now for Georgia Tech, to get this game to overtime, you got to be concerned about your guys in foul trouble. Sometimes, you know, they could get it to overtime, but if they lose all their guys doing it, it doesn't really help them very much.
So Duncan misses the first. Georgia Tech, Tim Duncan went 2 of 7 at the line in the closing minutes. Missed the boat. Georgia Tech bids for the ACC championship on this possession. And it's going to be Marbury to take it. No good.
It hit the back of the backboard.
Wake Forest ball with 2.3. Western LaRue to get it in, and Georgia Tech now wants a timeout. There was some confusion on that Jacket sideline, and Bobby Kermit said, hold it, let's take a timeout and talk it over.
And Bob, I think that the presence of Tim Duncan on the inside created the kind of shot that Stephon Marbury took. He did not try to get all the way to the basket. Braswell with good defense, and that hit the back of the backboard. Dave Odom's reaction again. Now he's got to calm down right away. Bobby Cremins takes a quick glance at the clock to see how much time is left. Stephon Marbury obviously very disappointed. That was not a very good shot, but you've got to give credit to Braswell, who moved his feet, prevented Marbury from getting to the basket. But I think Marbury was looking for the jumper the entire time. I don't think he felt like he was going to get to the basket with Duncan in there, not on that particular kind of a play.
And the eagle eye of Dick Paparo, too, to see that ball hit behind the backboard. Hits aside, you're okay, but it hit back in that corner, a little bit of the support there, and yeah, you'll see it here.
Braswell does a great job of moving his feet. His hands don't go in there, and that ball hits up at the top corner in the back. It hit the support, actually. That is a tough, tough shot.
Now the Deacs with 2.3.
But talk about your ability to come back in a basketball game. I mean, they had a shot to win the game. And with the way, I mean, it was 71-60 with 2 minutes left in the game. And who would have expected that Georgia Tech would have themselves in that kind of a position?
The Deacons trying to claim a back-to-back championship for the second time in its history. There have been other schools that won 3 straight, but these are the back-to-back champs. The Deacs of 95 and 96 trying to add their name to that list.
Pretty much all they have to do is get the ball in bounds.
Big Papa reminds Rusty LaRue he can move on the baseline. Now we got a foul. And this one will be on Saunders. Now the officials trying to get the players down the other end of the court. Everybody wants to talk about it.
Well, of course they want to talk about it.
Nobody wants to come down there and shoot it. It's going to be Goolsby at the line. He'll miss that front end of the 1-1 in this Georgia Tech spurt. 2.3 left.
You don't want to foul if you're Wake Forest. If he misses, you don't want to go over anybody's back here.
Oh, and he missed that one wide left. So Georgia Tech with a 2 or a 3 now to either tie it or win it.
I think with this much time, it's going to be a 3.
Goolsby missed them both. It's going to be Drew Berry from midcourt. No! And the Deacons are the champions of the ACC. In its 10th appearance in the ACC championship game, the Deacons lay claim to the victory. Their 4th ACC championship. And holding on for dear life at the end. The Deacons trail, led Bobby Crummon's ball club by 11 with 2:02 left. And Georgia Tech had 2 chances to win it. 75-74, Wake Forest wins the championship for the 2nd consecutive year. The Deacons ruled the Atlantic Coast Conference. Once again, as we get ready to go down to Dan Bonner, here's a look at the last shot of the ball game off the Goolsby miss. Drew Berry head up, measured it, launched it from midcourt, and it was wide left. And the Deacons emerge victorious. Let's go down to Dan Bonner.
Thank you very much, Bob. I've got with me head coach Dave Odom. Dave, congratulations, a 2nd consecutive ACC championship.
Thanks, Dan. One of the guttiest performances I've ever been around in my life. Exciting game. Georgia Tech just came back. You know, I can't say enough. We made a lot of mistakes, but they certainly made us make them. Stephon Marbury, Drew Berry, Michael Maddox. Their whole team's great. Bobby Crimmins has done a great job. But I got to say about our team, they've done a great job too. And I'm very, very proud of them, each and every one of them. I've got a lot of great feelings for each one. But right now, Tony Rutland wasn't able to play. I know he felt bad. I'm happy for our fans. Just a great day for Wake Forest.
Dave, the big guy had a heck of a game. What a tournament by Tim Duncan.
Well, you know, great players rise to great moments and opportunities. And he's certainly a great player. But even more than that, he's a great person, and we're awfully fortunate to have him at Wake Forest.
Dave, when Tony Rutland ran out, Rusty LaRue stepped in, and he made a couple of big plays, some drives down the lane, and then that 3-point basket. What a performance by your senior.
Well, again, you know, he's one, if you drop his name in a hat and they're choosing up sides, his name doesn't come out very quick. But the guy that ends up picking him 2 weeks later is going to say, I'm glad I got him.
Dave, congratulations, a great win. Good luck to you next week.
Congrats, Coach.
Thank you. You're the best.
Bob, let's go back to you.
He is indeed. Wow, what a performance from Tim Duncan. And a great day for Wake Forest University as they claim their 4th ACC championship.
We've got Tim Duncan, the most valuable player of the Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament. Tim, a dominating performance by both yourself and the Demon Deacons. What are your thoughts about a second consecutive ACC title?
It feels great right now. I think our guys came out and played very hard and executed what we had to do. Georgia Tech came back in the second half, but we held them off. And key guys like Jerry Braswell hit the free throws, and we pulled it out. Jerry
Braswell went to the line. They were 4 very big free throws that he made, but he didn't seem to be. Yeah, your dad's been enjoying this whole weekend.
Yeah.
But Braswell made some big free throws for you.
Yeah, he did. He stepped up there and knocked it down. Not nervous at all, and I just love him for that.
Now, when Tony Rutland went down, Rusty LaRue took over at point guard, and he made a couple of big plays for you then. Did you expect Rusty to do that?
Rusty plays well out there. He's not the greatest handler out there, but he gets the job done, and that's all we ask for out there.
Now, you started very quickly, and it looked like Georgia Tech was trying to play you straight up rather early rather than give a lot of help, and you took the ball right to the basket. Was that your plan?
Yeah, they usually don't play me straight up. They've never doubled me before until the end of the game, so coming out, I just wanted to attack early and get used to everything.
Now, on the last play of the game, on the last Georgia Tech shot, when Marbury was holding the ball on the inside, what were you thinking about that you had to do on that play?
I knew he was going to take it to the basket. He was only down 1 or 2, and he's played great the whole game, so he's going to take it himself and bring it to the basket. I just thought I'd get it around him and try to affect his shot.
Well,